Welcome to this webinar on XpoSim, LMKR's next generation training and evaluation simulator. I am Nisar Ahmed, development lead for petrophysics and web apps at LMKR. So what is XpoSim? The typical flow of the exploration simulation involves 2D or 3D seismic acquisition, processing and interpretation, economic evaluation, logging, drilling, and completion. XpoSim offers invaluable insights for both professionals and students, exposing them to real-world scenarios supported by actual geological, geophysical, and petrophysical data. Petroleum companies will be able to simulate scenarios using current or historical data, while academic institutes can use this simulation as a practical tool to train geosciences students and enhance their theoretical knowledge in real business settings. Our target audience includes professionals and students looking to fast-track their training around the key phases and activities of the exploration lifecycle. XpoSim can be used as an effective tool to understand theoretical concepts and provide its users with an opportunity to either learn the trade or sharpen their skills by using the simulation's virtual environment. Companies can use XpoSim to evaluate and train new hires, while educational institutes can use this simulation to educate geoscience students about the key aspects of the exploration lifecycle. These are some of the operational and functional features of XpoSim. We have an integrated help and knowledge base. It is totally customizable. You can load industry standard data. We have a centralized web-based administration portal for access control and data loading. We support competitive play and evaluation. It's totally cross-platform product. You can use it on web browsers, desktops, as well as large tablets. The functional features involve land acquisition, which include reviewing existing data and doing economic evaluation. Then comes seismic acquisition, planning and performing 2D and 3D seismic acquisition activities. Then is the 2D and 3D seismic interpretation. After that, we do well prognosis and then perform different drilling operations, including acquiring logs as well as casing and completion. Let's switch over to the live demonstration. When we launch XpoSim, this is the first main menu that we are presented. The user can go through the introduction of this simulation and understand what he or she is supposed to do. The ultimate goal of XpoSim is to find oil within the given budget and time. In the settings, we specify the IP address or the URL of the server. I'm going to log into the XpoSim simulator using my LMKR Active Directory credentials. If your organization does not have an Active Directory account, we can also provide specific credentials used for this XpoSim simulator. Once I'm authenticated, I can now start either a tutorial session, evaluation session, or a free-form session. The tutorial session is for beginners or first-time users so that they can get familiar with different activities of the simulator. In the evaluation session, the users are being evaluated against each of their choices. And at the end of the simulation, they're going to see a scorecard to judge how well they did throughout the simulator. This is good for training needs in which a trainer has created certain scenarios and the trainer wants to evaluate his trainees. Then comes the free-form session in which there is no evaluation being performed and the user can learn the simulator and improve his or her interpretation skills. So let's start with the free-form session to see what XpoSim offers. So once the data is loaded from the server, we can start playing this simulation. Over here we are showing some introductory screen in which user is being asked to select a suitable block in the next phase and then perform some evaluation by purchasing existing data relevant to a particular block. Let's continue. Next is the scenario selection screen. So the trainer or the admin has created certain scenarios. In this case, I have scenario 1 assigned to me. And within this scenario, I have two blocks. One is the teapot dome and the other is F3 North Sea. So these two blocks have publicly available data, and here you can see the description of these blocks. So the user can switch or scroll between these blocks, read more information about it, and then once we've done reading, we can select a particular scenario. Once I select a scenario, I can do further operations on this block. So over here you can see there is this information panel which is showing us different pieces of information. First is the total budget and remaining budget. So we are given 30 million US dollars to find oil within either of these two blocks. The remaining budget is still 30 million because we haven't performed any activities. And similarly, we have 180 days to complete all of these activities. And these activities actually consist of completing all of these 10 objectives, starting from reviewing and purchasing data, then acquiring a seismic 2D survey, interpreting it, similarly doing the same for seismic 3D, generating a contour as well as a 3D surface, and finally doing economic evaluation, prognosis, and drilling. So far we haven't completed any of these objectives. And this next screen shows different notifications regarding different activities that we've done so far. This help icon is going to show us a help screen. If the user is stuck anywhere during the simulator, the user can click on this help button to try to understand what he or she is supposed to do at this particular stage. We're going to close this help menu and I'm going to select teapot dome, and once again looking at these objectives, I'm going to start with reviewing and purchasing some data. To do that, I'll click on this shopping cart icon with a dollar sign on it. I'll click on it and the next screen is purchase data. And there was this notification which says that this activity cost us some amount and some number of days were spent in doing this activity. So a point to be noted over here is that XpoSim is an activity-based simulator. For every activity, some cost is deducted and some time is also deducted. So for in this example, we are doing the data review, so it took us about 5 days and $0.1 million. In this review phase, I can look at different financials, maps, seismic data, as well as wells data. So if I click on maps, it's going to show a list of different types of maps. And in this block, we have two geological maps available. So I click on it and these blocks will be loaded. So these maps have, these are geo-referenced maps. You can see the easting and northing of these, the 4 corner points of these maps. And I can, by clicking on this shopping cart icon, I can purchase these maps. And there's going to be some cost associated with it. So first objective has been completed, and I can go ahead and have a look at some other data. I can click on seismic 3D and it's going to show me some 3D data in this 3D viewer. We're going to come back to this 3D view in a moment. If I click here, I'm going to come back into this purchase data interface and I'm going to purchase all of the 2D and 3D data. Next, I can have a look at the different wells. I can click on well viewer and this is showing us one the data of this particular well. It's a production well and it has a depth of 1722 meters. I can scroll through the length of this well and see different values for well logs, lithology, casings, well tops. All of this information is being shown here. So in the real world, before actually going into a block, the companies actually review existing data if somebody else had explored the same area. So the companies want to know what data already exists for a particular area or block. So I'm going to purchase this well data as well. So now if I click here, the first objective has been completed. So next one is acquire a seismic 2D survey. I'm going to click on this button. This will take us into the terrain view for this block. So this is the terrain view where this is the realistic view of the data, in which we can, in a 3D environment, we can zoom, pan and rotate and have a look at different types of data that is available to us. So this light blue rectangle is our area of interest or exploration area. This is a georeferenced the area in which you can see easting and northing. Here you can see some 2D seismic lines. For example, if I click on this line, it says that I have a seismic survey 1. This was the length of the line and some interpretation is already performed on it. So these wells and this 2D and 3D seismic data is actually what I have just purchased in the data review phase that we just completed. If I had not purchased any of this data, I would not be able to see any of this in this particular terrain view. So by purchasing that data, I can now make better decisions and look at that data. So for example, if I click on this seismic 2D line and click view, I can see a seismic 2D viewer. And here I can see some of the interpretation that has already been performed, and I can perform a new interpretation. For example, I can say that second wall creek is somewhere over here, and I've just completed a seismic interpretation. You can see by going back into the objectives. So this was the interpretation that I did on an existing line. Let's acquire a new seismic 2D survey, which is one of our objectives. So I'm going to click on this VibroSeis truck, this yellow icon on the right, and drag it onto my terrain. And now I can choose between seismic 2D and 3D. I click on the truck again, and I'm going to choose seismic 2D. Now the camera goes into the top view mode, so that it's easier for us to plan our survey. So I can decide to draw a seismic line over here using this pencil tool. I can click on plus and draw another line. All of these lines are going to be part of this new 2D survey 6. This is the length of the survey. I'm going to add another line. Now when I click on this tick mark, I'm going to see a short animated video in which the user is being shown how the 2D surveys are done in the real world. I can click on this newly acquired 2D survey to see its information window, and then I can view this line and do I can decide to do some interpretation on it or project some wells on it. So if I can project this well on top of this seismic section and then perform my interpretation. So let's interpret red peak using this well data. I can undo if there's some mistake in the interpretation, and I can also switch to the color mode, change the gain from here, and I can reset my view. I can invert the colors, go back to the grayscale variable density view, and then I'll just come out of this 2D view. Now you can see that first three objectives have been completed. Let's acquire a seismic 3D survey and do some interpretation on that 3D volume. These are our next two objectives. I'm going to drag this seismic truck onto the terrain again, and this time select seismic 3D. I can click on the terrain, and next I'm going to be shown this seismic 3D survey parameters. Default are 10 inlines and cross lines with spacing of 200 meters. I can change the angle or play with the spacing, and I can change the number of inlines and cross lines. Next I'm going to acquire this 3D survey over here. By clicking on this 3D survey, I can look at this data. It's going to take me to the underground view, and here I can have a look at this seismic 3D volume. I can drag inlines and cross lines, and I can switch between this blade view and the cube view. I can change the transparency, and I can also do interpretation on this volume. So I can select a formation and interpret it. And similarly, I can interpret on all faces of the cube. I can also interpret faults if I see some. And finally, I can generate a surface of this horizon that I've just marked. So this surface is being generated on the server by doing the gridding based on the parameters we have just provided. And once the gridding is complete, this surface is drawn. And this surface has used all the available points for Shannon, which it has found across all of these servers. So I can also quickly look at any of these inlines and cross lines in 2D view. So if I want to see this inline number 1, I can select inline and number 1 here and click on this icon, and it's going to show me the same inline in 2D view. Because we have more control in 2D view, we can change time per inch, trace per inch, and gain, and we can come back to the 3D view. So now if we have a look at these objectives, it says that we have completed quite a few of them, and we just have to generate a contour of an interpreted horizon. So to do that, there are multiple ways to do that. So one of the ways is to go to the top view by clicking on this icon. I come to the top view, and over here I can generate a contour of any horizon that I've already interpreted in the seismic 2D and 3D surveys. So if I click show, It's going to generate a contour of Second Wall Creek. So over here you can see it has generated a contour for Second Wall Creek. I can also change it to some other like Shannon. So this is the contour for Shannon. I can also overlay different types of maps on top of my contours and change their opacity as well. So this is another feature that we provide. I can change my geological map to map 2 and I can change the opacity of my contour. Now you can see I have map 2 as well as the contour map of Shannon. So this completes our 7th objective, and now we'll perform economic evaluation. To perform economic evaluation, we'll use this icon over here. If you don't know what this icon means, you can click on help and it will tell you that this blue icon is for economic evaluation, this rig is for drilling, and this truck that we've just used, that was for seismic 2D and 3D acquisition. So next we'll do the economic evaluation. I'm going to draw an area of reservoir that I think is a rough idea of where my reservoir is, and it tells me that this is the square kilometers of this area of prospect, and I'm going to click OK, and now we've completed the next objective, and here we can change the parameters, so we can decide which one is going to be our reservoir formation. So I'm going to say red peak, and what is the average thickness or net pay, what is the recovery factor, how much percentage of oil we think we can recover, what is the current oil price. This is a very basic economic model in which we're judging the worth of a reservoir. So this is the area, this is the net pay, and using this we can calculate the volume and oil in place, and you're applying the recovery factor. This is this much million barrels is recoverable, and if we multiply that with the current price of oil, we get the total worth of oil in place, and comparing that with the budget of this project, we can judge whether it's feasible to go for this reservoir or not. We can also see this data, project this data on 10 years using a decline curve model. So over here I am projecting that with 5% inflation and 10% royalties and then discount rate and monthly operation cost, this is going to be my financial projections over a 10-year period. So this uses a decline curve model in which peak production is reached somewhere in year 5 and 6, and then the production declines or the volume declines. And we can also see this, we can also change these parameters within the allowed range, and the data is going to update like a spreadsheet, and we can see this data in a graphical format as well. So this was a basic economic model that we have provided to judge the worth of an oil in place. Next, let's start with the drilling activities, and the first one is preparing a prognosis for a prospect well. So before we do that, let's have a look at some of these wells that are already there on the map. I click on this. This was a well that we purchased. I can see its datum, elevation, total depth, and location, easting and northing. I can have a look at its data, and I can also have a look at this other well. This one has a shallow depth of 906 meters. So now I'm going to place a new well by clicking on this rig icon. This has a different model, and I can place it where I think is where I'm going to find oil. The first step is going to be prognosis or planning for the well. So let's plan for this well. I'm going to go up to 600 meters, find this formation, this geological age, and this lithology. Let's say I'm going to find sandstone. Next, I'm going to continue drilling. I'm going to find the same formation, and I'm going to change my casing over here. And similarly, I can just plan my well that I'm going to find the next formation over here, and maybe this lithology, and I'm going to use the next casing, and so on. I can keep on going like this. So this is just a plan. I come back. This the second last objective is now complete. I can select this well and start drilling. Now let's over the rightmost columns is the plan that we've just made, and over here we're going to do the drilling. You can see a short video, and then next I can acquire some wireline logs. These are the different logs available in this block. I've acquired these logs. I can have a look at their values, their minimum, maximum, and current value at this depth. And next I can do casing. So we have certain rules in place. For example, if we keep on drilling without casing, so in the real world your well is going to collapse. So over here we are seeing the actual lithology that is coming from the data of teapot dome that the admin has loaded on the server side, and on the right side we had the planned lithology and planned casing. So if I keep on drilling without doing casing, my well is going to collapse due to improper casing. Similarly, so once the well gets collapsed, I cannot perform any activity on it. I can just view whatever I did and the status is collapsed. Now I'll have to start again. I'll pick another well, place it where I think I'll find reservoir. I'll have to do prognosis again. This time I'll just quickly do a rough prognosis and go back to the drilling. In the drilling phase, this time I'm going to do proper drilling. I can do check shot surveys. I can do casing. And then I'll keep on repeating this drilling, acquisition, and casing. Next is I drill, I can case, then I'll continue. I'll acquire drill stem test over here, and I'll do the casing. So here we can decide whether to abandon this well or to complete it. So once again I'm going to do drill stem test, which tells us if whether there's oil here or not. I'm going to click on complete. Are you sure you want to perform completion at depth 1104? And it says well abandoned because reservoir was not found. And finally, we are shown this dialog box which says all objectives have been completed. We can abandon this block, or we can continue to drill some more wells in the hope of finding oil, or I can switch to a different block. So let me quickly switch to the different block. You can see that all 10 objectives for Teapot Dome have been completed, and this was the time spent and the budget. Next, we can switch to North Sea wells, and we're going to do that in the evaluation mode. So let's just click on this home button and finish this session. Now you see this video in which we are showing that no well was discovered in this block, and we are packing up and abandoning this oil field. So we have two types of endings. This one was a sad ending. The other one is a happy ending in which we actually discover oil and production starts to take place. So next one is the evaluation session, and this is going to be a bit different from the free form session. So let's start the evaluation session. In the evaluation session, I'm going to be presented with a number of multiple choices, and each choice has a score associated with it. The score is from 0 to 5, and the better the choice, the higher the score, and at the end of the day, the overall score is going to be the higher. So I'm going to select this scenario and choose F3 North Sea wells. And in F3 North Sea wells, I'm going to see some data, and this data is different from the way we were seeing data in the freeform session. Over here, if I click on this well, it says that this is prospect well 2, and it is acquirable. I can acquire this well. And same goes for this 3D survey and this other well. I can switch to the different block, which is Teapot, and here I can see some more 3D surveys, 2D surveys, as well as wells. Now the difference is that I cannot perform some new seismic 2D acquisition or 3D acquisition. I can just turn it on and off. And similarly for the wells, I cannot drag and drop new wells and start my drilling on them. I just have these choices whether to select this well or this well. Similarly, whether this 3D survey or this one. So the trainer has presented the user with a scenario in which we have to choose between different options, and the good choice is going to have a higher score. In a moment, we're going to see how the admin does that, how the admin prepares these scenarios. But right now we have to choose one of these. So let's select this survey. I'm going to acquire it. Some time and cost is going to be deducted as usual. And I'm going to acquire this well. So some objectives have been completed, and I can do economic evaluation as before. I can project my financials, and similarly I can do interpretation on this seismic 3D. So when I come to this interpretation phase, again the difference is I cannot do my own interpretation. I am presented with these three choices: Sussex A, Sussex B, Sussex C. So one of these is going to have is the correct interpretation, and it's going to have the highest score. So I'm going to select one of these and one of these faults. Similarly, one of these interpretations. So the user in the evaluation mode is simply selecting from multiple choices. And I can just keep on selecting and go back. So I've completed the interpretation phase. And similarly, I'm going to do some drilling and prognosis. So I'm done prognosis on this well. I can drill. I'm going to drill up to this depth, acquire some logs, and then do casing. And I can just go back. I can switch to F3 North Sea, and I can do the same activities here again. So I'll have to choose between one of these wells. I'll choose this one. I'll choose this seismic 3D, and I can do some activities in this block as well. I can do prognosis and drilling. So let's just instead of completing all objectives, let's just see what happens if I finish session here at this point. So again, since we did not find oil, we're going to see this video. I can skip this video, and here you can see a scorecard that is being presented. So in the North Sea wells, I got a 0 score because I did not do much in that block. But in the teapot dome, I got some score in acquisition, interpretation, and drilling. And this is the average scores for each of these 5 different phases. And this is the total score for each block, and then there's the average towards the bottom right. So you can see that in the evaluation mode, the user is being evaluated for each of the activities that he or she is doing. And this includes data review, economic evaluation, seismic acquisition, interpretation, and drilling. And then a final score of out of 100 is calculated. So this is the main difference between evaluation and freeform mode. And next we are going to see the admin module where you can load your own data and prepare different training scenarios. So let's just log out from XpoSim and switch over to the web browser. And here I have logged in to the XpoSim admin. And this is a module where you can manage different users, blocks, create and manage different scenarios, assign permissions to users, see the scorecards of all the sessions, and then manage some global data. So let's just quickly go through all of these activities. We have this is the main dashboard on homepage, and we can also access these areas from this top menu. Now I'm going to start with users. When I click on users, I have to log in to see all the data. So this is going to take me to the users screen, and I have different users over here. I can create new users. Similarly, I have different blocks, the North Sea wells, the teapot dome, and teapot dome advanced. And we're going to go have a look at this data within the block in a moment. But let's just finish all these other areas. So then we have scenarios. We have this scenario 1, allotted time and budget, and we have some blocks assigned to this scenario. So when we were playing the simulation, we were seeing only these 2 blocks because this one was not assigned to this scenario. And next, if we go to home screen, the next is permissions. So you can assign permissions to different users. So different users have permissions, and we can also give permissions to scenarios. So this scenario these users have permission on this scenario, so we can assign permissions both ways. Next is the scorecards. This is the scorecard of all the users who have played the evaluation session. So this one was this is here where you can see the list, and we can sort on total score and see who did the best. And this was the highest score in the overall sessions. And similarly, we can filter based on different users and date, time, and all that. Next is the session logs. This is to see what activities a person performed. And for this particular session, which started at this time and ended at this time, we can see the logs. If I click on it, I can see the teapot dome. First of all, economic evaluation was performed. This was the cost. This was the activity, and so on. We can see different data in this block. Next is the global data configuration. We have a list of lithologies preloaded into the simulator. The user can change these lithologies. Lithologies are these rock types. We have a thumbnail image, name of the lithology, and you can add more or change these if you want to change their name or image. And we have a list of geological ages, similarly recovery factors. All this data can be edited and modified as per your needs. We have some default casing, DST results, and financials. Let's go into the blocks and explore this teapot dome block. I click on this teapot dome, and here I can see the name of the block, the description, the thumbnail image, the summary file, and the terrain type. We support three types of terrains: grass, desert, and snow. And here is the grid info. So this area that you see was actually the area that you were seeing in the terrain view, marked with a light blue boundary. And this area corresponds to a 3D seismic volume that had been loaded into this block. So this is the information of that 3D seismic volume, and this is the grid info. The easting, northing locations of all these corner points. So for example, this 1 has this easting and northing, and similarly this inline 345 and cross line 188 has this easting and northing, and this makes a grid. Next is a list of formations. These are the formations available in this block. We can load, add new, or delete, and we can assign different values. For example, if I click on edit this channel, I can change its age, lithology, average porosity, water saturation, salinity, and different factors. And we can also specify whether this is a reservoir formation or not. And if it is, then we can specify how much oil is recoverable. So this is the list of formations in the correct stratigraphic order. Next is financials. We provide default financial values for each activity. For example, how much cost would be occurred if we do a seismic acquisition 2D. So this much would be the cost, 10,000 USD per day, and then time would be 10,000 meters per day. So this tells us that in 1 day we can acquire 10,000 or 10 kilometers of seismic, and this would be the cost per day. And similarly, we can change the cost and time values for all activities. Then in the purchase data phase, we can again specify different costs for different types of data. So we have this configurable financial engine because in some terrains or in some blocks, depending upon the complexity of the terrain or area, the cost of performing different activities would vary. So this is why the admin can change this cost. Over here we can load different images of maps. So we have two geo-referenced maps loaded into this teapot dome block. You can add new. Then we have wells, and these are the well headers. So this is a production well, and we have some dry wells and total depth, their surface location, datum elevation, elevation type. And then within this well, we have different types of data. Well headers, well curves. So these curves are actually the LAS files, standard LAS files, which can be loaded. And then we have time depth tables to convert from time to depth domain. Then we have picks or well tops against all the formations. Then we have the casings and DST. So the admin can actually change all of these values, provide DST values for any of the formations. If no value is provided, then the default would be used. Over here you can see the different seismic 2D and 3D lines. And we can use the 3D editor to create and interpret new surveys. Over here we can delete, but over in that 3D editor we can create new ones. And this is the scoring engine. When I click on scoring, it is going to load all the scores that have been assigned for the evaluation mode. So we can assign scores to these entities. We have maps over here, and so this map has a low score and this one has a higher. Then we have wells. So if the user selects this well, the user will get a low score, but these wells have a higher score. So this affects the end score of the user. And then we can also mark each entity whether it is purchasable or not. So if it's purchasable, then this will appear in the purchase data review phase. And if it's not purchasable, then this would be an acquirable well within the terrain view. Next, we can also score the interpretations. So we have this survey. So within this, between the surveys, survey 2 has a lower score, 2 and 4 have a lower score, and 1 and 3 have a higher score. And within this survey, we have different interpretations on different seismic lines. So this channel A has a higher score, and Wall Creek B has a higher score, and the rest were just wrong or dummy interpretations. So this way we can change the score of different activities. And ASCII loader is a very powerful feature of the admin. Over here we can use the we can use standard ASCII files in text format or CSV format. For example, if I want to load well headers, I can have a look at its sample CSV file. So this will open in a spreadsheet. So if I want to load well headers easily, instead of loading them one by one, I can prepare a spreadsheet in this format, and then I can simply load data. Select the ASCII file, specify where the data starts, what is the delimiter, whether it's a tab delimited or a comma delimited file, and ignore the comments, and then specify which column has which data. And the loader automatically converts from the units to its XpoSim standard units, which are in metric units. Finally, let's have a look at the 3D editor. The 3D editor is a browser plugin which requires a Unity web player, and once the player is loaded, the admin can use this 3D editor to create new seismic 2D or 3D surveys, and also change the scores and for scores and purchasable status of these different entities. So let's just wait while the data is being loaded in this 3D editor. So here you can see all the blocks that are available, and in this 3D editor I can open Teapot Dome, and here the admin can click on any entity and change the score from here and mark it purchasable. And I can also drag and drop, for example, these wells. I can move it around, place it somewhere else, and similarly I can create different sets of interpretations. So over here, you can see the admin has already marked these interpretations. So I can click on it and change its score, or I can modify it, or I can undo. So this way the admin can prepare different interpretations using the 3D editor. So this is the overview of the XpoSim admin, and we can use this XpoSim admin to prepare our data set. You can use proprietary data sets within your company, or you can use publicly available data that is available for scientific or academic research. And this is the end of our webinar for XpoSim. And to summarize what we did today, we went through the overview of tutorial sessions, which included evaluation mode as well as the freeform mode. And then we performed different activities and saw what was the difference between evaluation mode and the freeform mode. In the evaluation mode, the admin had created certain scenarios, and the admin has provided you with multiple choices, and each choice has a corresponding score. Whereas in the freeform mode, you can do all kinds of activities freely without the fear of getting a bad score or a good score. So freeform mode is for practicing and learning about the domain, and evaluation mode is about performing activities and judging and comparing with your peers how well you are doing compared to them. And there's one last thing I wanted to mention is this knowledge base. So XpoSim comes with a built-in knowledge base, and this is a context-sensitive knowledge base. So within the simulation, at any point, we can click on the links at the bottom panel. I can quickly show you again by loading XpoSim, logging in into the simulation. I can go to the freeform mode, and once the data is loaded, you will notice that there is this bottom bar, status bar, which says XpoSim knowledge base. And inside, by click over here, you can click on any of these scrolling links. If I click on this link, it is going to open an external link in a browser, in your default browser. So within the XpoSim simulation, the user can learn more about any phase by clicking on this bottom panel, which we call the integrated knowledge base. And you can use your own knowledge base for this purpose. So this is a small knowledge base that we provide, that we ship with the product. But if you have a comprehensive knowledge management system of your own, so XpoSim can be integrated with your company's knowledge management system. And all these external links can be are customizable, and you can use your own knowledge management system with XpoSim. So they combined with the knowledge base and context sensitive help, XpoSim becomes a very powerful training simulation product. So to wrap up, I would like to say that you can always visit XpoSim.com to learn more about this product. We have tutorial videos over there, and you can also replay this webinar by visiting these links. And I thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed this time. Goodbye.